All right, let's dive in. Today we've got this really cool case study all about a senior living facility.
Okay.
They used like some seriously innovative retaining wall ideas to, squeeze every bit of usable space out of their property.
Yeah, sounds interesting.
Kind of like architectural Tetris, if you can picture that.
I like that, yeah.
So this place is called the Carnegie at Washingtonian Center.
Okay.
It's in Gaithersburg, Maryland.
Right.
7 stories tall, 450,000 square feet.
Wow. That's pretty big.
Huge. Not exactly a tiny house,
Yeah.
right? And get this, the whole thing is built on a slope.
Oh, so right away, they've got their work cut out for them.
Exactly. You can't just plop a massive building on a hill and call it a day.
Yeah.
You need some serious engineering know-how.
Yeah.
Our main source for this deep dive is a case study from the company behind the retaining wall system,
Oh.
MagnumStone. They really lay out the whole story.
So was it just the slope that was the challenge?
Well, that was a big one, for sure. But there was also limited space, nearby structures, underground utilities, you name it.
Oh, wow.
And they needed some pretty impressive walls, too, like tall, curved walls. Not your average backyard retaining wall.
So it sounds like a real logistical nightmare, huh?
It does.
Yeah.
And to top it all off, they were building year-round.
Yeah.
Rain or shine, the work had to go on. Talk about a puzzle.
Yeah, that's a lot to juggle. So how'd they manage to pull it off?
Well, that's where MagnumStone comes in, with their precast, reinforced gravity walls.
Gravity walls, huh?
Yeah, and I know gravity wall might sound pretty basic.
Yeah.
But trust me, these are not your garden variety stone walls. There's some real innovation going on here.
Okay, I'm all ears.
So the secret sauce is these things called gravity wall extenders. Basically, imagine little extensions that let you build a taller wall without needing to dig a super deep foundation.
Ah, I see.
Makes sense, right? Especially when you're working in a tight space or have to worry about underground utilities.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So it's all about maximizing the space they have, kind of building up instead of out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it all comes down to this clever design with the blocks and the extenders.
It's pretty cool to see how they're using this technology to, solve a very specific problem on this project.
Right.
But the implications are actually much wider, Yeah. Think about all those tight urban areas where land is at a premium.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's like they're tackling an immediate challenge, but also paving the way for new approaches to urban development in general.
Exactly.
Now, the case study goes into detail about one particular wall.
Mm-hmm.
This thing was massive, 26 feet tall.
Wow, that's pretty tall.
Yeah, it was a behemoth.
Yeah.
And, normally a wall that tall would need a huge foundation, right?
Right.
Tons of digging.
Oh, for sure.
But because of how these MagnumStone blocks interlock and how they use those extenders,
Yeah.
they were able to build this massive wall with a surprisingly slim base.
Interesting. So you said normally a wall that size would need a different approach. What would that usually look like?
Well, you've probably seen those walls that have a kind of grid-like structure behind them to reinforce the soil.
Yeah.
Those are called geogrid reinforced walls.
Right.
But on this project, with all the space limitations and everything, that approach just wasn't feasible.
So MagnumStone swoops in with this alternative. And it's not just space saving, it's strong enough to handle a 26-foot wall. That's pretty impressive.
It is. And you know me, I always love digging into the details. What really caught my eye was the fact that these blocks are hollow.
Hollow? What's the point of that?
Well, they have these internal drainage columns built right in,
Oh, okay.
which means water can drain away super quickly.
Ah, that's smart.
This not only makes the walls stronger, but it also helps them last longer. Water damage is a big issue with retaining walls, so this is a big deal.
Yeah, that makes sense. So it's stronger, it's more durable. What else?
Okay, get this. They actually ran guardrails and fence posts right through the hollow cores of 2 of the walls.
No way, really?
It was to comply with some fire safety regulations. Like, fire trucks need to be able to access certain areas, so they had to reinforce the walls where those guardrails and fences were.
Wow, that's really thinking outside the box.
Right. It's like those blocks are multi-tools. So you've got efficiency, strength, adaptability. But let's be honest, nobody wants their construction project to be an eyesore.
True. Aesthetics are important too.
Exactly. And these MagnumStone blocks are actually designed to look good. They have this natural stone look that blends in really nicely with the landscape.
Okay, so they're not just functional, they actually look good too.
Right. Way more stylish than a plain concrete wall. They even have these special top blocks so you can extend landscaping or parking areas right up to the edge of the wall.
Oh, that's a nice touch.
It creates this really clean, finished look.
It's like they thought of everything.
They really did. And this isn't just for massive senior living facilities. This system could be used on all kinds of construction projects.
Yeah, for sure. Anywhere you're dealing with limited space or you just need a retaining wall that's strong and flexible, this Carnegie project is a really great example of what's possible.
It really shows how this seemingly simple retaining wall is actually revolutionizing the way we think about land development.
Yeah, I agree.
It's efficient, adaptable, and even looks good. But I think what's even more exciting is how all of this ties into the bigger picture of sustainability.
Okay, now you've got my attention.
And we'll get into that right after this.
So, about that sustainability angle,
Okay.
it's worth highlighting just how significant this retaining wall system could be in that respect.
All right. I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Well, imagine you're building a traditional retaining wall. You're digging a huge trench, but the MagnumStone system, by needing less excavation and using those precast blocks, it can really cut down on material use and transportation needs. Fewer trucks on the road, less energy-intensive manufacturing. It all adds up.
So it's like a ripple effect. One choice leads to another, and eventually you're reducing carbon emissions and your overall environmental impact.
Precisely. And it all ties into this big push for sustainability in the construction industry. Everybody's looking for ways to build more responsibly these days. Clients, architects, everyone.
It's almost like this case study is a perfect example of that shift in thinking. It's not just about building a wall, it's about building smarter, more sustainably.
Exactly. And the really exciting part is, this is just the beginning. There are so many new materials and digital design tools out there aimed at making construction more efficient and eco-friendly.
It definitely gives you hope for the future of construction. We can build amazing things without trashing the planet in the process.
Absolutely. Speaking of cool new tools, the case study mentioned that MagnumStone actually developed special software for designing and analyzing these retaining walls.
Oh, yeah. I haven't had a chance to check it out yet. What's it like?
Well, from what I've seen, it's pretty impressive. You can model different wall designs, factor in all sorts of site conditions like soil type and slope. You can even simulate the load-bearing capacity. It seems super user-friendly for engineers and contractors.
Wow, that sounds incredibly useful.
Yeah. And not just useful, but potentially safer, too. By accurately modeling and analyzing these structures, they can eliminate a lot of the guesswork, which means fewer errors, more reliable designs.
So it's a win-win-win. More efficient, potentially more sustainable, and safer. That's a pretty strong case for this innovative approach.
Absolutely. It shows how even a seemingly small detail, like what kind of retaining wall you choose, can impact the entire project, from the initial design and construction all the way to the environmental footprint and how it fits into the surrounding community.
It's a good reminder that we should be paying attention to these innovations, big and small, because they can really lead to a better way of building. But before we get too caught up in the future, let's see what our listeners have to say. We've got some great questions about this case study.
Oh, cool. I'm always curious to hear what people are thinking.
Okay, so first up is Sarah, who wants to know about the cost. She asks, is a system like MagnumStone more expensive than traditional retaining wall methods? What are your thoughts on that?
That's a great question, Sarah. And honestly, it's one that comes up a lot when we're talking about new building technologies. It's tough to give a yes or no answer without looking at the specifics of each project, but there are a few things to keep in mind.
Okay, let's break it down. What are some of the factors involved here?
Well, first of all, while the MagnumStone blocks themselves might be a bit more expensive upfront than some traditional materials, you have to consider the savings from reduced excavation. Less digging means less time, less labor, less equipment rental. All of that adds up.
So it's not just about the price of the blocks, it's about the total cost of the entire process.
Exactly. And don't forget, those hollow core blocks and extenders allow you to build closer to existing structures, which can be huge in urban areas where space is limited. That alone can save a lot of money.
Right, because you're not having to buy as much land or demolish existing structures. Makes sense. All right, next up is John, who has a question about maintenance. He asks, what about upkeep? Do these MagnumStone walls need any special care?
John, great question. And one of the best things about this system is its durability. Those precast blocks are super tough and require very little maintenance.
So no need to worry about repainting or resealing like you would with a wooden retaining wall.
Nope. The natural stone finish is designed to age gracefully. And that internal drainage system we talked about, it helps prevent water damage, which is a big problem for most retaining walls.
Okay, low maintenance is always a good thing. All right, we've got time for one more listener question. This one comes from Maria, and it's a bit more philosophical. She asks, Do you think this approach to construction can actually make a difference when it comes to the challenges of urbanization and sustainable development?
Maria, that's a question that goes right to the heart of why we do what we do. And you know what? I'm optimistic. Our cities are growing, resources are becoming more scarce, and the environment is under pressure. We need solutions that are efficient, adaptable, and sustainable. And this type of thinking can definitely be a part of that.
It's like we were saying before, finding ways to make the most of the land we already have instead of sprawling outwards and gobbling up more and more natural areas.
Exactly. And that's where these innovative solutions come in, building denser, taller, more resilient structures while minimizing our impact on the environment.
It's pretty amazing to think that something as simple as a retaining wall could play a role in building a more sustainable future.
Welcome back. We've been talking about this super interesting case study.
The Carnegie Washingtonian Center and how they use that innovative MagnumStone retaining wall system. It really got me thinking about all the ways we could be applying this kind of thinking to other projects, especially in cities.
I totally agree. Maria's question before about whether this approach could really make a difference for urbanization and sustainable development.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a big question.
It is.
And it makes you realize that finding ways to build smarter and more efficiently is like absolutely crucial, especially if we want to create cities that are truly sustainable.
And it's not just about being eco-friendly, right?
Yeah.
It's also about making the most of the space we have.
Yeah,
Creating a city that's actually a good place to live.
for sure.
This MagnumStone project is a great example of that, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. Remember how they built that 26-foot wall?
Yeah.
But with a relatively small footprint?
Right.
That's the kind of thinking that's a total game changer in cities, where land is so valuable.
It's not just about squeezing in as many buildings as possible, though.
Yeah.
It's about doing it in a way that's, well, thoughtful.
Yeah.
Makes the city more beautiful, works well with the existing environment.
It's about creating spaces that are functional and beautiful and sustainable, all at the same time.
And this case study kind of shows that those goals aren't impossible to achieve, you know?
For sure. Sometimes people think sustainable building has to be, like, boring or just purely practical.
Yeah, like it can't be stylish.
Right, exactly. But I think the best solutions, the most innovative and sustainable ones, they come from thinking differently, finding ways to blend form and function. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, like those MagnumStone blocks with their natural stone look.
Yeah, exactly.
They actually make the project look better. They're not just functional.
It's about looking at every single part of a project, asking ourselves, how can we do this better,
Yeah.
smarter, and how can we do it in a way that contributes to a better future?
Well said. This deep dive has really made me think differently about how we can use innovative construction techniques to make a real difference.
Yeah,
Even something as simple as a retaining wall.
totally. It's a good reminder that innovation can happen anywhere. Even the smallest changes can have a huge impact.
And we should never stop looking for ways to improve and create a better future. Speaking of which, if you're interested in learning more, the case study mentioned that MagnumStone has some great resources on their website.
Yeah, they have design software too.
Yeah, definitely worth checking out if you want to see how all of this works in the real world.
And if this deep dive has got you curious, keep exploring. There's a whole world of amazing solutions out there just waiting to be discovered.
Great point. Thanks for joining us. Until next time, keep those minds curious and never stop exploring.